Welcome to Luke Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Listening Time. I am Liam, and as always, I am joined by the ever-curious Maggie. How are you doing today, Maggie?
I am doing great, Liam, but I have to be honest with you, I am a little bit tired because I spent almost the entire night playing with my new favorite toy. Well, it is not exactly a toy, but it feels like one.
Let me guess, is it that new espresso machine you were talking about last week? The one that supposedly makes coffee that tastes like it came from a five-star hotel in Rome?
I wish. No, the espresso machine is still on my wish list. I am talking about ChatGPT. I finally decided to see what all the noise was about, and Liam, I think I went down a very deep rabbit hole. I started by asking it for a simple recipe for dinner, and 5 hours later, I was asking it to write a screenplay about a time-traveling squirrel.
A time-traveling squirrel? That sounds like a very productive use of your Tuesday night. But it's funny you mentioned that because that's exactly what we're talking about today. We are going to discuss how to become a master of ChatGPT, or as some people call it, a prompt engineer. But before we get into the technical stuff, tell me about this squirrel. Did he actually manage to save the forest?
Well, his name was Nutty, and he had a tiny silver vest that allowed him to jump between the years 1920 and 2026. He was trying to prevent a giant shopping mall from being built over his favorite oak tree. It was surprisingly emotional. I actually felt sad when the AI described the squirrel looking at the modern world with confusion. But then I realized I was talking to a computer at 3 in the morning, and I should probably go to sleep.
That's the magic of it, right? It feels so human. My week was a bit different, but also involved some technology struggles. I tried to fix my old record player, the one I bought at that garage sale. I thought I could just watch a video and do it myself. I spent 3 hours with a screwdriver and a magnifying glass, only to realize I had put the needle on backwards. I felt like such a dinosaur. I should have asked ChatGPT for a step-by-step guide instead of guessing.
Exactly. That's why I want to talk about this. I feel like I'm using it, but I'm not using it well. It's like having a supercomputer, but only using it as a calculator. I want to know how to go from just asking simple questions to really making it work for me.
That's a great goal. Most people treat it like a search engine. They type in a word or a short phrase and hope for the best. But ChatGPT is not Google. It doesn't just find information, it generates it based on what you give it. Think of it like a very smart, very fast intern. If you tell an intern to just do some work, they'll look at you with a blank face. But if you give them clear instructions, a goal, and a specific style, they will give you something amazing.
A smart intern. I like that analogy. So where do we start? If I want to be a master, what is the first thing I need to change about the way I talk to this AI?
It all starts with the prompt. The prompt is just the instruction you give, and the golden rule is specificity. Let me tell you a story about when I first started using it. I wanted to write a polite email to my landlord because the sink was leaking. My first prompt was just write an email to my landlord about a leak. The result was okay, but it was very cold and formal. It sounded like a lawyer wrote it. My landlord is a nice old lady named Mrs. Higgins. If I sent her that email, she would think I was angry or planning to sue her.
Oh no, we do not want to scare Mrs. Higgins. So what did you do?
I realized I had to give the AI a personality and a context. I tried again. I said, act as a friendly tenant who has lived in the apartment for 3 years. Write a warm but clear email to my landlord, Mrs. Higgins, explaining that the kitchen sink has a small drip. Mention that I'm happy to help her coordinate a plumber. The difference was night and day. The second email sounded exactly like me. It was polite, helpful, and it got the job done without any stress.
So you gave it a role. You told it to act as a friendly tenant. Is that a common trick?
It's more than a trick. It's a fundamental strategy. When you give the AI a role, you're telling it which part of its massive brain to use. If you say, act as a professional chef, it will use a different vocabulary than if you say, act as a 5-year-old child. This is what we call persona prompting. It's the first step towards mastery.
persona prompting. I need to write that down. I tried to use it to help me practice my English conversation, but it felt a bit robotic. Maybe I should have told it to act as a patient English teacher who loves movies.
Exactly. And you can even tell it how to behave. You could say, act as a teacher, but don't give me the answer right away. Ask me leading questions so I can figure it out myself. That turns a simple chat into a real learning experience.
That makes so much sense. I was just treating it like a magic box where I put in a question and a piece of paper comes out. But it's more like a conversation.
Precisely. It's iterative. That's a big word for B1 learners, but it just means you do it in steps. You don't have to get it right the first time. You can talk back to it. You can say, that's good, but make it shorter. Or can you use simpler words?
Iterative, like a staircase. You go up one step at a time until you reach the top?
That's a perfect way to put it. You're not just a user, you're a director. You're directing the AI towards the perfect output. I remember trying to use it to plan a trip to the mountains. My first prompt was plan a 3-day trip to the Blue Mountains. It gave me a very generic list. Go to the lookout, walk on the trail, eat lunch. It was boring. So I started the iterative process. I said, okay, now add more secret spots that tourists don't know about. Then I said, adjust the plan because I'm traveling with my dog and we can't go on certain national park trails. By the end of the conversation, I had a custom map that was better than any travel blog I had read.
Wow, so it's about the journey of the conversation, not just the first click. I think I'm starting to see why you call it a masterclass topic. It requires a bit of imagination from the human side, too.
It really does. You have to be the creative spark. The AI is the engine, but you're the driver. And as we move forward, we'll talk about how to give even better directions to that engine so you never get lost. Picking up right where we left off, Maggie, the idea of being the driver of the AI engine is really the key to everything. You have to know where you want to go before you start turning the wheel.
That is so true. I was thinking about your story with the landlord. It shows that the AI has all the information, but it needs us to give it the heart or the tone. But sometimes I find that even when I am specific, the AI gives me something that is completely wrong. It is like it is making things up with a very confident face.
You have hit on one of the most important concepts in the AI world. We call that a hallucination. It's a funny word because we usually use it for people who are seeing things that are not there. But for an AI, a hallucination is when it generates a fact or a piece of information that is completely false, but it presents it as if it is absolutely true.
Hallucination? That is a great word. It sounds like the AI is dreaming while it's awake. I think that happened to me when I asked it for the history of my neighborhood. It told me a very detailed story about a famous pirate who lived on my street in the 1800s. I was so excited that I told my neighbor, and she laughed at me for 10 minutes. Apparently, my neighborhood was a cow farm until the 1950s. No pirates at all.
That is a classic example. Let me tell you a longer story about why this happens and how to avoid it. A few months ago, I was helping a friend who was a history teacher. He wanted to find primary sources about a specific treaty from the Middle Ages. He asked the AI for a list of books and authors. The AI gave him a beautiful, professional list, titles, years of publication, even page numbers. My friend was impressed until he went to the library. Not a single one of those books existed. The AI had looked at thousands of real book titles and then combined them to create new ones that sounded real. It knew what a history book title should look like, but it did not actually check if the book was in the real world.
That is actually a bit scary. If it can lie so convincingly, how can we trust it? How do we become masters if we are always worried about hallucinations?
The secret to mastering this is understanding that ChatGPT is a language model, not a knowledge database. It's brilliant at patterns and structures. To stop the lying, you have to give it what we call grounded context. If you want it to summarize a story, don't just ask it to summarize the story from its memory. Copy and paste the text into the chat and say, based only on this text, tell me what happened. When you give it the information to work with, the chance of it making things up drops to almost zero.
Grounded context. Okay, so I should provide the facts myself if I want to be safe. But Liam, you mentioned some big words earlier. I want to make sure I really understand them. You said prompt, output, and iterative. Can we do a quick vocabulary spotlight?
Of course. Let's start with prompt. In the world of theater, a prompt is a little hint given to an actor when they forget their lines. In AI, the prompt is your instruction. It's the starting point. Think of it like the seed you plant in a garden. If you plant a tomato seed, you get tomatoes. If you plant a vague or bad seed, you might just get weeds.
I love that. So the prompt is the seed. What about output?
Output is simply the result. It's what the AI gives back to you. If the prompt is the seed, the output is the fruit. Sometimes the fruit is sweet and perfect, and sometimes it's a bit sour and you need to try again. This leads us to our third word, iterative. Like we said, it means repeating a process to improve it. In a conversation with AI, you're in an iterative loop. You give a prompt, you get an output, you evaluate it, and then you give a new, better prompt to fix the mistakes.
Prompt, output, iterative. And what about hallucination?
Let's add that one too. A hallucination is when the AI gives you a false fact with total confidence. A good way to remember it is to think of a magician. They show you something that looks real, but it's just an illusion. You have to be careful not to be fooled by the magician's confidence.
Those are great words. I feel like I'm learning the secret language of tech experts. But I have another question. Sometimes when I ask the AI to write something, it uses these really long, complicated sentences that no human would ever say. It feels too perfect, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. We call that the AI voice. It tends to be very balanced, very polite, and very wordy. To master this, you need to learn how to control the length and the complexity. This is where the word constraints comes in. A constraint is a limit. If you tell the AI, write a description of a sunset, it might write 3 paragraphs of purple prose. But if you add a constraint, like use only 20 words and make it sound like a poem for a child, the output will be much more natural and useful.
So I should be a bit of a boss and give it limits.
Exactly. Be a strict but fair boss. Tell it exactly what you don't want. You can say, don't use passive voice, or don't use words that are too formal. I once used it to help me write a birthday card for my brother. He hates sentimental things. He likes jokes. My first prompt gave me something very sweet and emotional. I had to tell the AI, no, make it sarcastic and short. Mention that he's getting old and losing his hair. The result was perfect. It sounded like a real brotherly joke, not a computer.
That is hilarious. I think I've been too nice to my AI. I treat it like a guest in my house, but I should be treating it like a tool in my workshop.
That's a very healthy way to look at it. It's a tool. And like any tool, whether it's a hammer or a violin, you have to practice to get the best sound out of it. It's about building a relationship where you understand its strengths and its weaknesses.
I'm ready to practice. I want to move from writing stories about squirrels to actually using this to improve my life and my English. What are the practical steps for someone like me who is at a B1 level?
That's exactly where we're going next. We'll talk about how to turn this into your own personal language laboratory.
That idea of iteration really changed how I see it. It is not about getting the perfect answer in one go, but about having a conversation that gets better and better. So, Liam, let us get practical. How can our listeners, especially those learning English, use these master skills in their daily lives?
This is my favorite part, because ChatGPT is arguably the best tool ever invented for language learners. If you're at a B1 level, you're in the perfect position to use it as a bridge to reach B2 and beyond. The first practical application is what I call the vocabulary architect. Instead of just looking up a word in a dictionary, ask the AI to give you the word in 5 different contexts. For example, if you learn the word stubborn, ask the AI to write a short dialogue between a stubborn teenager and a parent, and then a story about a stubborn old mule. Seeing the word in action helps your brain build a stronger connection to it.
Oh, I do that sometimes, but I should probably ask it to explain the nuances too, right? Like the difference between stubborn and persistent.
Yes, that is a master move. Ask it for the flavor of the word. You can say, Act as a linguist and explain the emotional difference between these two words. It will give you a much deeper understanding than a standard definition. Another great use is for writing practice. Many learners are afraid to write because they worry about grammar. You can paste your writing into the chat and say, "Don't just fix my mistakes. Explain why they are mistakes and give me two different ways to rewrite this sentence to sound more natural."
That sounds like having a tutor available 24 hours a day. I used to feel embarrassed showing my writing to people because I made simple mistakes with prepositions, but the AI does not judge me. It just helps.
It never gets tired and it never gets frustrated. You could ask it to explain the same grammar point 100 times, and it will be just as happy to help the 100th time as it was the first. But here's a pro tip for conversation. You can actually use the voice mode on your phone to talk to it. Tell it, "I want to practice ordering food in a restaurant. You be the waiter and I'll be the customer. Let's start the scene." This is an incredible way to build confidence in a low-pressure environment.
I tried that once and I got so nervous I actually said thank you to the phone when the AI waiter brought me my imaginary soup. I guess the persona prompting works both ways. I really felt like I was in the restaurant.
That just shows how immersive it can be. But we have to remember the final tangent of today's talk. Technology is amazing, but it can also lead to some very funny situations if we rely on it too much without thinking. I have a friend named Gary. Gary is a very smart guy, but he's a bit lazy. He wanted to write a very romantic poem for his wife for their anniversary. He decided to use AI to do it. He told the AI, "Write a beautiful, deep poem about a woman named Sarah who loves gardening and has blue eyes."
That sounds like a nice gesture. What went wrong? Did the AI hallucinate?
Not exactly. The AI wrote a very long, very intense poem. It used words like eternal, celestial, and transcendent. Gary thought it sounded great, so he copied it onto a beautiful piece of paper and gave it to her at dinner. Sarah started reading it, and at first she was touched, but then she reached the middle of the poem. The AI had decided to be very creative and included a verse about how her blue eyes were like the cold, icy moons of Saturn. It then compared her love for gardening to the way a fungus grows on a fallen log in the deep woods.
A fungus on a log? That's definitely not romantic. Did she get angry?
She just looked at him and said, "Gary, do you think I'm a mushroom?" Gary had to admit he had used a computer and hadn't even read the whole poem carefully. The lesson here is that even if you are a master of prompting, you must always be the final editor.
The human element is what makes communication real. The AI can give you the bricks and the mortar, but you have to be the architect who makes sure the house actually looks like a home. I love that. Don't let the AI turn your wife into a mushroom. That's the lesson of the day for sure. So, to summarize everything we talked about, we need to be specific with our prompts, use persona prompting to give the AI a role, use grounded context to avoid hallucinations, and remember that it's an iterative process. And most importantly, we need to keep our own human voice and judgment at the center of everything.
You nailed it, Maggie. You're well on your way to becoming a master. For everyone listening, your homework for this week is simple. Go to ChatGPT and try to have a conversation where you use a persona. Ask it to be a historical figure, a famous scientist, or even a time-traveling squirrel like Maggie's friend Nutty. See how the conversation changes when you give it a clear direction.
And don't forget to check for hallucinations. If it tells you that George Washington invented the smartphone, you might want to ask for a second opinion. This was such a fun topic, Liam. I feel much more confident about using these tools now.
I'm glad to hear it. It's a brave new world out there, and language learners have more power than ever before. Just remember to use that power wisely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on English Listening Time.
Yes, thank you, everyone. It was great to share these tips with you. I'm going to go back and see if I can get Nutty the squirrel to write a better poem than Gary did.
Good luck with that, Maggie. I hope it involves fewer mushrooms. Goodbye, everyone, and happy learning.
Bye-bye. See you next time.